Welcome, everyone, to the 13th episode of the Exploring Aliveness podcast. It's
Yeah.
been a second. Pablo, I don't know if the last episode he came back from a retreat. He might have. Well, I came back from another trip. It's just been a second, so excited to go back into it. We're going to be talking about our senses of self, our construction of who we are, identity. That's really alive for me right now. And I'm curious about like what Pablo's thinking about his sense of self and aliveness, or identity. So I'm gonna pass the ball over to Pablo and ask the question.
Hmm.
How do you think about your sense of self?
Ah, fuck. Hmm. Yeah, so just like off the cuff and like what comes up is my sense of self is like the story I've been telling myself since God knows when. I really wish I could remember like what was like the first story I told myself. And it was probably some story somebody told me about me. And I just like, all right, cool. That's what you think about me. Then I guess that's right. Cause like, I don't know better. And if I had to guess, it was probably my parents and my caretakers and whatnot. So if I had to guess, my sense of self is the unconsciously accumulated stories that I've told about myself over the 34 years that I've been alive. And that probably didn't start until some part of my brain was developed. So minus a few years. And it's so interesting, man. And like, I've been marinating in this like, oh, who am I question for like a week and a half now. And like the truth is like I don't really know at this specific moment. Like there's not like a thing that I can point at and be like, oh, I am this. And like no, it's like, oh, I don't know. How come I don't know that? I guess am I not supposed I'm supposed to know that, right? Who am I? But like I don't know what's going on. So generally admitting to myself that I don't know is creating this space to like wonder and be curious about like, oh, so like what am I not? And like, oh, like these thoughts and these like stories about things keep coming up and like they seem to just like show up and go away and then a new one comes up and show away. Some keep showing up repeatedly. And I'm like, how come I'm aware of all that? And I can like consciously say, no, I don't want to like follow that story. And if that's true in my experience, then like, what's the thing that's like looking at all that? So that's really juicy for me right now, man. And there's a part of me that gets excited of like, yeah, I don't know what's on the other side of this, and like, fuck yeah. So that's what's alive.
Yeah. And it's like what comes up is like when you share that, like if you don't know who you are, then how are you doing things?
Ah, wow. I love that question. And what's so here, and this is how I'm understanding it. That exactly. And it's like my body knows when it needs to go to the bathroom. My body knows when it's hungry. My body knows when rest is needed, when sleep is coming up. My body knows when it's horny. My body knows when like the like stimulation is desired. Like my body just knows and I don't need to manage that. I just like pay attention and like, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. And then if I can just go do it now, I go do it. Oh, I'm hungry. Cool. And I just prepare a meal. And I'm like, oh, things are just happening for me all the time. And same when like some thought pattern shows up and I'm looking at like some like Excel sheet or like some written situation on my computer. It's like, oh, thoughts just show up and they like support the thing that's happening, just like a desire to eat or a desire to sleep shows up. And then like that's just the thing. So like what's really been fucking with my sense of identity is like, oh, if everything is just happening, then what am I supposed to do? And like, who is supposed to be doing anything if there's nobody to be doing anything at any moment? Cause like things are just like emerging. Um, so I just been in like this like, wow, puzzle of like, wow, I don't really know what's going on. And I'm like, I'm kind of like starting to get savvy on it. So there's like a bit of like, I know what's going on, but the truth is that I don't. And it seems like the only needed requisite for me is just trust in the now over and over and over again.
Hmm. what the question that came up was like there sounds like there is a self involved in the way that you're describing it, and then there's also like a thing that's beyond the self.
Mm.
And I'm curious about like how you're like there's like a oh you know they're like you're talking about a self. There's like oh I did this and I'm thing, and then there's like a thing that's like oh but there's also a happening and it's moving, and I'm curious about how you're thinking about those two, like the duality there.
Yeah, yeah. So, just for the record, fuck language, because like I'm noticing I'm starting to run into the limitations of language, and oh, I'm about to say like an absolute thing. I'm just gonna go for it. I need to say I. Like like I can't until now imagine a world where I walk around not saying I. Like I am hungry and like I this and I that and like I want to say this and like I like how do I live without using that word? Like I don't know yet, right? And at the same time, what feels like my genuine experience is that there is no like real I. There's this body for sure. There's these thoughts showing up that I'm just gonna say come from my mind. So like there's a mind and there's a body, and I don't seem to own or like have like there's no like written record like oh this is Pablo's body and this is Pablo's mind. It's like no, like what feels more true is there's a thing which I'm gonna call I, holding that word very loosely. There's a thing that is experiencing a body and is experiencing a mind, and I am neither of those yet. I am the only I. Here's a word again. This is the I love the puzzle. I'm just gonna keep using I. I is the only thing that has access to the subjective experience of the mind and the body. It's like I have a front row seat. It's like I'm inside of a concert with a single seat, and that's the seat that I get to take. And the show that's happening is the combination of my mind and my body interacting with the world. Um, so that's how I'm holding the duality.
Cool. Yeah. Um, so how do you want how are you like if that's how you're holding the duality, then like how are you holding your sense of self?
Oof. Oh, I love that we're here. So, oh, I haven't, I don't know, long. I haven't put it in words like this before. So to me, there's a legit paradox at play. And it's like, I am the combination of mind and body, and I am experiencing at all times. And I am accountable for what comes out of my mouth. I'm accountable if I punch someone in the face. I'm accountable if I steal money. I'm accountable, like, I'm accountable to all of those things. I'm accountable to the things that I said I was going to do. And at the same time, like there is no one to be held accountable for at like the bottom level, and like both are true in my experience. And I'm noticing I've been like trying to be like either or, and it doesn't work like that for me when I try to either or it. It's more like oh it's a both and language that helps me understand is like at the relative level, at the level of tables and chairs, there is an I with an ID and with a passport. And if the police pulls me over because I'm speeding, I'm not gonna be like, who are you talking to? Like there's no I here. Like they're probably think I'm drugged on something and things are just gonna get worse. So like at that level there is an I. Yes, sure, absolutely, let's go. And then like at like the actual real level, at like the ultimate level, there is no such thing as an I. And the I is more of like this handy tool that is used to navigate the social realm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I feel like yeah, I as a tool to navigate life. And then like there's like an attachment to I that happens as we grow, and any attachments like an allowance to not feel something,
Mm.
not fully experience something. So it's like it becomes like this like muddy filter. But as you clean the filter, like the eye becomes again a tool that you can kind of navigate the world with. Is yeah, what's coming up for me. And like as you've shared all of this, like I've been like mulling in the background like my own experience of this, which is like the sense of self feels like the ego, the sense of self. Um, also kind of feel separate. There's like I have my internal system is like three. Like there's the ego, there's the self, and then there's God.
Mm.
Is the way that I view it. And there's like the ego is like the defensive mechanisms, like all the things that I'm doing to avoid experiencing reality, like direct reality in some way. And then the self is like that clean, like I clean up that all those like those ways of showing up in which I am not experiencing direct reality. Like the more that I clean it, there's like a sense of self, that like a bigger self that arrives, that's like holding it all in unconditional love. And my ego or even my sense of self is kind of like fractured and there's like a lot of issues. And I think we talked about like an iceberg analogy. Like there's like this iceberg of like my subconscious and conscious material of the way that I'm interpreting and looking at reality. And then there's like a filter, like the self is like a filter in which reality is experienced. And then I also have this experience of God. And there's like I'm saying God, but also like another way to say that is like this experience of complete oneness, but also an experience of like beyond me, beyond self. Because I think that's like the best way to put it. It's like it doesn't feel like self at all. There's no self. And it feels way bigger than self. There's like this like wonder, this like completely not knowing, but also moving with complete conviction that shows up very rarely, but always has shown up in my experience
Mm.
of like this like moving through life with no self at all, but like moving through life with a grander, like as if I am God in this body in that moment. Um, and there's like this like freedom and flow and also like just direct, complete direct experience. But that can't, it almost feels like it can't happen with a sense of self. Like the sense of self comes back online in some way. And then there's like a, how clean is my sense of self becomes a question for me of like, oh, is that sense of self right now? Like how much am I avoiding direct experience? What is all the ways in which I'm not fully liberated? What are the patterns I'm running? And like bringing awareness and cleaning myself up. But then like that God experience, like there's no cleaning to do because it is like directly here and it's happening and it's bigger than me. Um, so like that's what came up for me as like I was thinking about it as you were sharing. So I'm curious if you have any questions there.
Yeah, totally. So when you're having the God experience, what happens to your ego and then behind that, your sense of self?
It feels like it gets blown open.
Mm.
Like it just not there. Like it's just like and everything is just happening, but there's no one even experiencing the happening. It's just like a happening, like an unfolding. Um, I've only had this like twice, so it's like very small, but it's just like, oh, there's like an experience of, and then but then once you have it once or twice, like you can, there's a connection to the thing that's grander than you, grander than the sense of self. Like this, like I guess another way is like the direct connection to the model that constructs reality for me in my brain or something.
Wait, hold
Maybe
on. Say that again.
the a direct connection to like the model itself that's constructing reality for me in consciousness. Like source is another way of soul. I don't know. There's like other words for it, but there's definitely an experience of like there's something beyond my sense of self.
Mm.
Um, and the self is a thing that I have, and the self is like I think the Buddhists have the five skandhas, and it is like a combination of like physical sensations and thoughts and sensations and feelings and emotions and habits, and that's like a constructed sense of self. And it is like a liberating the sense of self is having like habits that are in service to me, having emotions like move through me cleanly, um, yeah, and all of that experience. And then also like my sense of self also feels like it always has some form of like attachment. Like how
Mm,
secure is that attachment versus how like insecure or avoidant is that attachment also comes into question. And then when I'm like in connection to God or like the thing beyond, like there just feels like a direct like it's like, oh, things are just happening perfectly as they are. And also my connection, my self's connection to the thing bigger than me also feels directly related to my attachment. Like if my sense of self feels insecurely attached, my connection with the thing beyond me also feels kind of insecurely attached.
mm,
Um, but I feel like this is going beyond identity, but like that's my current experience of it. And then whenever I feel a lot of shame, like the sense of self feels like constricted or like I'm holding on to it in some way of like myself doesn't like my self identity kind of gets stuck in some form if I'm feeling shame because I'm like there's like a holding on to something that like doesn't need to be held on to.
mm. I'm curious where you draw the line between ego and sense of self.
That's a good question. Hmm. I feel like I'm using self like the way that I'm using self is that like if I yeah, there's like a cleanness to self that's not there in the ego, but they're kind of like enmeshed in some way.
Mm,
Of like the ego feels like all my unprocessed gunk, and the self feels like this like bigger than ego thing that can hold the gunk and help process the gunk.
mm,
But then there's like something beyond that that's like
hmm.
way bigger as well.
Cool. And now I'm wondering, like, and there's an assumption in the question that I'm going to make, and the assumption is that you can like identify with either the sense of self or the ego. How true is that in your experience?
Yes, 100%. Like I have
Okay.
experience like, oh, I'm identified with self. I feel clean. I feel like I'm moving. Life just feels like it can happen. I feel empowered. And then I'm identified with ego. I'm like thinking about myself a lot. I am, this is mine. Oh, fuck, I need to think about this. I feel very self obsessed in some way. And then, or I'm identified with God and there's nothing. There's just like perfection. Like it's like a flow, like complete flow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How does the process of identifying with one of these three positions, like, what's that like?
I, that's a good question. Um, I mean, I feel like when you are in ego, like I'm constricted. Like there's like a constriction
Mm,
generally, and there's like a forgetting. Like more I'm in ego, the further away I am from like my higher self, God, or like that wonder, that openness. Um, there's almost there's almost like the ego always has a sense of I'm not like there a forgetting of my inherent goodness.
mm,
The self has, I would feel like depending on your sense of self, like a sense of inherent goodness, and then like being one with God is just like everything is good. There's like inherent goodness in reality itself. And then there's also like the other piece of like reification of like the ego is like reifying as in making real the beliefs I have, the feelings I have. Like it feels very personal, it feels like real, and then the self has like less reification, and then God, it's like everything just is, and there's like everything is, and everything is inherent, like empty of inherent substance, but is showing up in this model of reality kind of experience.
mm. I keep getting this image, and I'm wondering what happens in your system when you receive it. And there's light beaming, and then there's the source of light, aka God. There is a light that itself, and then there's a shadow that happens for whatever reason. How true in your experience, or how does it match that God is the source, light is the self, and then the shadow is the ego?
That sounds it sounds good. That sounds like very clear. What's my experience of it? I feel like the ego feels more, it's like if I described it, it would be like the sun is God in a way, and the light is also part of God. And then there's like a glass, like a stained glass, in which the light is like fracturing through and going
Mm,
through. And that is your sense of self. And then there's like gunk or stuff on the glass, and that is like your ego kind of
mm,
experience.
mm.
Yeah, that's how it lands for me.
So here's a question. What do you do with this knowledge about yourself?
What do I do? I deepen my connection with source.
Mm.
I clean the mirror and I keep doing what I want and living life. It's just like, oh, there's a thing that's beyond me. And then there's like I know that cleaning up the mirror will help me show up in the world the way that I want to in a way that's not like harming others or myself. And I know that like if I in a way like back away from the mirror, like if I like de-reify the objects that are my reality, which feels like more awakening experience, and I'm more connected with source, that makes like cleaning up the mirror easier
Mm.
in a way. It's like I like back up, like it's almost like I'm backing up from the mirror. Um, and then also the glass changes. Like I grow up and I like add different filters, and I have different glasses that I can add, or like the sense of self becomes like modular. Like identity becomes more and more modular, depending on like what I need in the moment.
Whoa, so what's this sense of self-growing business? What's that about?
Growing business. Oh, yeah. I don't know. But what I've experienced is like the more that I've done the inner work, the more my sense of self has just become. It's almost like I suffuse a quality into my essence of showing up. Like if I'm coaching someone, I want to show up as loving presence. And then as I learn to do that better and better, like I become more and more of a loving presence. And that becomes like a lens, like a sense of self that is showing up for people. But then like maybe in another setting, the sense of self that wants to show up is like incredibly masculine and incredibly like just like powerful. And then like I create that like sense of self in a way, like that sense of self is starting to arise and be created. And then in the act of using it, in the act of embodying that way of showing up, I it becomes more and more skillful. It
Mm.
becomes more and more, it grows up. It like grows into its own way of like an embodiment. And the embodiment, that sense of self, like um has more of like a feedback loop to like be accurate in the like in service to the thing that it's trying to do, is what's coming up.
Hmm. So, what does this have to do with archetypes? That's just a question that just bubbled up for me.
I feel like that's like the thing that humans do is like we construct archetypes so that we can learn to embody the things that the archetype represents. So an
Mm.
archetype is like a perfect representation of a self model that holds a certain set of qualities. And then in the act of learning to embody that archetype, you construct a self model that is able to like just be that thing. And the thing is like we are none of the self models. And the looser we can hold our senses of selves, the more archetypes that we can internally construct and learn to embody, um, that serve the purposes that they need to serve.
I love where we are on this fucking conversation right now. Oh
And then
my
the
God.
other thing is like you might have already constructed senses of selves, and some self models might have ego, like dust and debris and gunk. And then if you're in that model with the gunk, you might be stuck there until you clean out the gunk and then you can gain the freedom again to like
Mm.
kind of like remodel the senses of selves.
Yeah. Wow. So what's coming up is like, oh, we're just doing yoga poses all the time, and like how well can we hold a specific yoga pose, aka an archetype, yet we are none of the yoga poses. We're none of the archetypes. And the ego is whenever we fool ourselves into believing that we actually are one of those archetypes when we're really not, and we cling to it, and then that clinginess is causing the tension in your body. How does that land?
Yeah, as you asked about archetypes, the first thing that came up in my system was deity yoga, which is like a Vajra practice where like you embody, like, you imagine a deity, a god, who has a perfect
Yeah, yeah.
representation of love or fear or anger, and you learn to embody it. And then it's like different poses, different deities that you're doing yoga with, and you're none of it, and also you're all of it. Like that's what came up. And then it's like, oh yeah, like to do that well, you need to have processed enough of your shit to be able to let go of the self model that you think you are so that you can construct these other self models that you can learn to like go into.
Ah. All right, so check this out. What's bubbling up now with the whole archetype conversation is I think Jung coined this, and that there's a collective consciousness, and that in that collective consciousness there's like an imprint of like all the archetypes that are possible for humans, and that I think he claimed that a big one of the big jobs of us as humans is learning to embody all of those archetypes so that we become whole. And then if you don't experiment and practice with one of them, then like that's like where your homework is. And so that's coming up. And then what's also coming up is like, oh, where do I even get these archetypes from? And then like, oh, well, I probably start getting like a taste of them from the culture that I'm in. And then like my dad obviously plays the father archetype. And then my mom obviously plays the mom archetype. And then like, I don't know all the archetypes by heart, but other people in my circle play those archetypes. And depending on how cleanly their relationship is with that archetype, like that is passed on to me. And if my dad has a shitty relationship with his father archetype, then like I not only get the imprint of that specific archetype, but it also comes with like the grime and the dustiness and the non-cleanliness. And then it's like my job to eventually realize, oh, I have like a really twisted father archetype, and like these are the different spots that need to get cleansed in order for it to come out cleanly, and for me to not take it personal, but still like allow it to come whenever it's needed. So all that's like bubbling up to the surface, and I'm wondering what you're wondering about that.
It made me smile as you shared it. Yeah, what am I wondering about that? It's like what archetypes what are the pieces of identity that you're currently working on?
Oof. Oh. Oh. Oh, I'm noticing that there's like a, oh, be careful with speaking about this online on public. It immediately shows up, which to me is like such a sign of ego, and such a sign of like my ego like identifying and believing that that archetype is me, and then like being afraid. So that's like a cool thing to become aware of. So the lover archetype has been like coming up for me pretty strong, and I'm noticing like how quote unquote like unclean it was, or like how like dirty that archetype was, and I've been doing the work to clean that archetype, which I call shadow work. And the more and more that archetype grows, the more I get to like embody it, and I get to see the impact of embodying the lover archetype in my platonic relationships, in my romantic relationship. And it's this it's just like, oh wow, what a cool like way of being. And it doesn't need to, like it's not called to be front and center all the time, and I'm doing other things, and that comes online. So the warrior archetype is another one that has been like taking up so much space in my life, and I love giving it so much space. Am I giving it space? I don't know about that. It's just taking up a lot of space, and I love the amount of space that it's taking. And to me that one's all about like, all right, machete cutting through this like very thick jungle, and I'm just like plowing forward and doing whatever needs to get done to move the ball forward on all my projects. And it is just like it really turns me on to see that happen, because for like such a long time, I'm assuming my warrior archetype was hurt in some way. And as soon as some difficulty like was experienced, all right, no more motion. I can't do this anymore. There was like an aversion towards difficulty and towards intensity and towards not knowing what the next step is. And now that there's plenty of tools for that warrior to keep moving forward and to process emotions and to like figure out if there's a problem and how to solve it, that like I just keep moving forward. I guess the archetype. You see, this is where it gets funny. So the warrior archetype also like just like blooming in my life. And then there's the magician and then there's the king. And the magician, like what that represents to me, it's all about like, I don't know if woo is the word. Maybe woo is the word. Maybe it's pointing in that. It's like very magical. It's very like what are like the patterns involved here, and like what are the subtleties that I really need to be like super present and attuned to in order to like sense, and like what are the different things that I'm mixing to produce like novel things. So it's got like this like very like creative like energy involved. And that's like been booming in my life as I'm like making connections between different realms. And then there's the king archetype, which I'm having so much fun with, as like the qualities that come with that are like empowerment and assertiveness, and I know what I want, and there's a clarity, and there's just like this is what I want, and if people are going to join me on it, great, and if not, then like I'm gonna find where my want is gonna be able to like grow, and like I'm not gonna like stand back. Like this is it. This is my truth, and like I'm just gonna keep moving forward. Oh, I'm so excited right now by speaking about all this. That's why I'm speaking so fast. So those are the ones that are live.
Cool. Yeah, I'm noticing like the four masculine archetypes are the ones that feel
Yeah,
most alive for you.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Hmm. How does that impact your sense of self?
Hmm. Yeah, what an interesting question. So I I embrace a similar model that you have, and it's like there's source, like ultimate truth, ultimate everything. I don't know. I've never experienced it. I trust that it's there and that everything comes from it. And then there's this word that I like to use, which is soul. And like, oh, like when I'm well resourced, when I'm like embodied, when I'm like empowered, when I'm like showing up in a clean way and like there's no fear going on and no games going on, like that's my soul. And like it's just like woof. And then there's the other layer on the other side of that, which is I call the voice in the head. And like that thing is like confused about what it is. So it thinks that it's real and it thinks that the needs of the body are its needs. And it thinks that it's separate and it needs to be playing games with everyone. And like outcomes are actually important and it needs to fight for all that. So like there's that mode of being for me. And then there's the just like bring it, whatever happens, happens. I know that I can't die because like I was never born and I will never die. So like fuck it, bring it. Fearlessness, like full empowerment. And not only that, but like I got this experience of God like backing me. And whenever I'm operating from this place, life tends to feel like a movie and there's synchronicities happening and everything is just like groovy, even the dumpster fires. Like the dumpster fires become even more groovy since I get to see like like how the lotus grows out of the shit, and it's just so beautiful. So to your question, like how does those archetypes like affect my sense of self? I feel more fluid in like allowing those archetypes to show up, for them to do their magic, for them to do their role in like whatever the situation is at the moment, and then for it to drop as if like it drops, and then like the next one shows up, and then that one does what it needs to do, and then it drops, and like I'm just in this constant like shape shifting. And now I'm even wondering how many shapes are even possible. Yeah.
Yeah, as you shared the four masculine archetypes, I was thinking about the ones that I'm currently working through or embodying. And it feels so feminine and different. And if I had to give them words, I describe one as princess, but generally it's like to caretake, to like be loving in that caretaking way. That's like actually like a healthy representation of that. Like
Mm.
making my space beautiful, being really supportive for my life, caring about myself through meals, caring about the people in my life. There's like this like finding beauty in myself and finding beauty in others and creating and having plants and having like beautiful things like in the world. That's like showing up very strongly. And I also feel like it's like the most shadow for most of my life. That was like the shadow archetype that I was like has the most shame and has the most content that was repressed. So that feels like front and center for me as like it's like, oh, there's a lot of ego here and there's a self here that's like so beautiful that wants to now like be unburdened, that wants to
Mm.
like come out into the world to be in service. And then there's another model that I feel like I was working with for a long time that feels a lot really unburdened. That's like now like shows up every once in a while and I get so excited. And I call this part of me Mech, but also like MEK, which is like Samek, but just like the last three letters, which a friend of mine like called out. But it's kind of like a representation of like Vishnu, like the god Vishnu, like this like childlike, like I'm gonna steal butter so that um so that like you know you have my attention and I'm gonna run away and like hide and then like you're gonna chase my like this like playful like childlike like just like I'm here to have fun, I'm here to play, I'm here to just like make life awesome for myself and for everyone around me so everyone's playing and in wonder. Like I feel like this archetype was so like I feel like that was the thing that I was working on for the last year and a half and it has slowly like seeped into the background of my life of like, oh, there's just playfulness and wonder that's just present. um and then as like the Vishnu, like that like playful child archetype, but it's not a child, it's like playful adult child thing like that I was like embodying has like seeped in now, like this like princess, this like beauty archetype is like taking foreground. But I'm also seeing like the all the other archetypes that I have in my system. Like I call one of them engineer, who's like very technical and wants to figure everything out in like a very technical way. And that shows up every once in a while. And I have like the king archetype as well that just like incredibly empowered and like communicates with so much clarity and directness and gets exactly the thing that everyone wants. There's like this like cohesion that he creates.
Mm.
And there's almost like also like the ones that I'm in most are the ones with most ego experience that I'm having of like, oh, I'm always in the archetype that has the most burdens because that has the most, in a way, like, I don't know, that ego, that like that sense of self with those burdens is the most fruitful to be in because there is the most possibility for liberation in that self. Because as I work through this self and all my egoic gunk here, not only do I gain the fruits of all this sense of self has that everyone also gets to share, like it seeps into the background, but I also like gain the freedom of like just like having an access to like let go of anything that's not working for me, of not being afraid of like showing up in that empowered, clear way. And the thing is like that empowerment piece, like the emotions, like the feeling of empowerment shows up for all of my archetypes. There's like, but that like that love and empowerment piece like comes more as I work through my shadow material for the archetypes that
Mm.
I have. And then also one more thing I want to add is like I've mapped out my archetypes and like it's been really fun to like just see what naturally arises. And I have 12 and 8 of them map directly into like the enneagrams pretty clearly. Like each of the archetypes is a pretty good embodiment of an enneagram type, and then like looking at like the shadow of the enneagram has been really helpful for me to like it's like,
Mm.
oh, I'm here, and to be liberated and free for this archetype, like it's almost like learning to embody like the best version of an enneagram type. And then there's also like I have a model of an ideal father figure, and then a model of an ideal mother figure that's internal. That's an archetype that's like being constructed to help work through the ego material. And then there's also like void, which is like nothingness. And then there's also God, which like I can't really access, but sometimes I like fall into it and I was like, oh, there's like this like thing that's beyond all of these archetypes that are just that just exists.
I feel like I'm just looking at the Grand Canyon right now.
I remember, like, as you share that, I remember, like, I don't know, it was like Joe Hudson in an episode, describing his sense of self to someone, which was along the lines of like, I am infinitely you and you are infinitely me. Like, I am looking at myself through you. And then he also shares that whenever he's looking at someone, like, he sees like the way that you can like feel super seen in the other person, like not have any need to feel seen is by like fully seeing like their humanity and how much you are them.
Mm,
There's like that flexibility of like as you learn to let go more and more, and as you're able to encompass and embody a lot of the humanity, like your desire to be seen just like goes away because you're always seeing yourself in
mm,
everyone you interact with because
mm.
everyone's embodying an archetype at whatever stage and with whatever burdens they have.
Yeah, I have a question, and before I ask it, there's this image that I saw once, and it's like you're loving everything mainly because like everything is you. So like in me loving you, I'm loving myself, and in me loving this screen, I'm loving myself. So like the only thing that there is love, and if for any reason I hate you or I hate the screen, or if there's something I hate, what I'm really saying is like, oh, there's some shadow material that I'm not owning, and like that's the reason I'm hating it. So that that popped up, was really nice to see. My question though, and it I love that it popped, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting question, and I was just still here with you, and I'm like, oh, and it's not going away. Wow, it's really not going away. Cool. So you said, I'm going to paraphrase, like somehow the archetype or the self or like the something that needs most healing is the one that like comes up front and center, and like if that's worked through, there's the most liberation and freedom. What I'm wondering is like, what what makes it work like that? What is the thing or the function or the force or the whatever that says, all right, this is the one that is going to be front and center so that it can get word? Like, how does that happen?
That's a good question. I don't know. I have no fucking idea. I don't know, dude.
I feel like I just asked the Grand Canyon, yo, how the fuck did you get like this? And I was like, oh, I
Uh,
don't know.
the answer that did come up was like, for a long time, I would say the archetype that I was embodying was like engineer plus like stoic narcissist, which is like I am incredibly intellectual and I'll figure everything out, right? And also I will not feel anything and I got this.
Woo.
Felt so necessary and needed because like my parents aren't supportive of my inner work and I don't have the support I need. I don't even know what support means like in that like when I first got was living life. So then it became like okay, get as much resources as possible. And it's like okay, this archetype came online and I embodied it for a long time, which is like I have no emotions, I am a robot and I will gather resources.
Yeah.
And then like as I gathered a lot of resources, it came to a point where it's like I feel empty and I feel like I have enough resources to like figure out what this emptiness is. And
Mm.
then you go into the emptiness and you're like, oh, there's, and then the archetype switched. And then since then, there's like, I think that when that switched, I went into like the playful child, but like incredibly burdened, helpless child for like a long time. And like it became the work for like years to like unburden into like playful child. And there was like that experience of like, oh, I embodied an archetype for long enough where it served its purpose really well. And then it let go because it was like, oh, and the next, my freedom comes from being helpless and
Yeah.
learning to love the helplessness that I never felt as a child, never let myself feel. And then now it's like, okay, what's next? It's like, oh, now it feels like there's a lot of shame, just shame in general. And it's like, oh, what's that? And it's like, oh, there's a lot of love that I never let myself feel.
Mm.
And it's like, oh, that's a lot of love, dude. That's scary. A lot of fear and disgust from all the ways I've pushed love away. And I was like, as I learn to embody this, like another archetype will probably like take over, and it was just like this like perpetual like cleaning up
Mm.
happening in my system. And I'm like also assuming that's what happens for most people of like your system, as in your consciousness, is so incredibly intelligent. And like a tree, like is always growing towards the sky, no matter if you like bend it this way or like bend it this way or cut a branch off. Like we are so made to reach for the sky. We're so made to grow and like expand our consciousness, and it happens. Like the wanting is already naturally pulling us that direction, and I feel like we become the shape necessary so that we grow. Um, and that is always like my assumption currently is like that's something that naturally just happens. Like we just become the shape we need to be to have the experiences we need to have to grow more and more.
Dude, ah, I want to drop the microphone right there. That feels like a beautiful landing spot. Yeah, and it's like a beautiful cliffhanger for potentially our next episode. And it's like, what's that thing that knows and like is moving the tree and it's moving us towards the sky? I'd love to dive into that.
That's cool.
Cool. Whew. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it seems that we have arrived to the end of episode 13. This has been completely delightful, and something that made this really enjoyable was Samek and I fucking around and finding out with like a different format for our podcast. And maybe you noticed, maybe you didn't. And it's more of like, all right, let's full attention on one person and like dive into like what's happening in their system and their wisdom, and then all that bubbles up. And then like there's a transfer, and then like dive deep here, and then like there's a transfer. So I really enjoy that. If you happen to notice, let us know what your experience was. Drop something in the comment. Do you like this? You don't like it? Maybe we'll keep it into account. Maybe not. We'll see. Yeah, that's all I got to say, man. I'll pass it
Yeah.
over to you.
Thank you everyone for watching the 13th episode of the Exploring Aliveness podcast. It's been a fucking blast. I love growing and showing up with all of you. Have a great one. Peace.
Peace.